This is episode 6 of Cannabis class, THC versus CBD. I'll be going over the differences between the two, what they do, and why people want one or the other. First off, THC, or delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, is a lipid made by cannabis plants to purportedly protect them from UV rays, environmental stress, and insect predation, which are not at all the things it does for humans, although you could argue the stress reduction. THC is a phytocannabinoid, which distinguishes it as from the plant, unlike synthetic versions like those used to manufacture spice. It is found in the resin secreted by glands concentrated in the cannabis plant's reproductive organs. As a cannabinoid, it interacts with the CB1 and CB2 receptors in your brain and nervous system. You naturally have these receptors, and through other means and pathways they influence hunger, mood, and other effects often associated with cannabis. THC has been linked to immunological and anti-inflammatory properties, and intravenous administration was shown to induce a wide range of psychoactive effects, including the feeling we refer to as a, quote, high, but also anxiety, paranoia, perceptual alterations, and cognitive deficits such as verbal recall. These were acute, transient, and self-limited, however, meaning not severe, short-lived, and resolving on their own. Now, while there are examples of THC exacerbating psychotic symptoms, it is also involved in pleasure pathways through dopamine release, and the synthetic forms of THC have been approved for the treatment of chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting by way of the drug dronabinol, also used to treat anorexia. Then we've got CBD, or cannabidiol, which is also a phytocannabinoid that interacts with the CB1 and CB2 receptors, although less strongly. It can actually be synthesized to THC through pyrolysis, which does occur when smoking. It is usually harvested from hemp stems, however. CBD has neuroprotective and anti-inflammatory effects, and appears to be well tolerated in humans. Research is being done to look at the possible benefits of CBD against anxiety and self-deprecating thoughts or antipsychotic effects from schizophrenia. Its most famous benefit is as a seizure reduction medicine for epilepsy from things like Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, or LGS, by means of the drug Epidiolex. Repeatedly, Epidiolex reduced the number of seizures, in some cases stop them altogether. For insomnia, CBD may help with both falling and staying asleep. And then for more general use, CBD inhibits inflammatory and neuropathic pain, and has been shown to topically lower pain and inflammation due to arthritis, although that study wasn't in humans. But aside from specific medications, why do people want one or the other? Well, cannabis can contain THC, CBD, or both. These are natural variations, but cannabis growers now work to specialize in certain levels of chemicals. There are several reasons for this, such as product desire, but also legality. As I've talked about before, plants with low-level THC are federally legal in the U.S. as hemp, whereas plants that aren't low in THC are federally illegal, regardless of whether the crop is for recreational cannabis or CBD use. THC is the main psychoactive component of cannabis, and it's what gives people the high they receive from cannabis intoxication. It activates areas of the brain associated with memory, pleasure, movement, thinking, concentration, coordination, and time and sensory perception. The higher the THC concentration, the stronger the cannabis's potency, which is why it's labeled and used as a selling point. But people build up a tolerance to THC just like they do to the alcohol content of a drink. So people who smoke often tend to look for a stronger strain. This is actually the reason dispensaries tend to stock so many high-percentage THC strains in products. Habitual smokers are their most frequent customers, and that is what those customers tend to look for and purchase. New users and those with casual interests make up a significantly lower share of income and so have less influence on store stock. It's similar to the influence of cannabis potency over the past few decades, although that has a lot more to do with growing techniques, globalization, and selective breeding. But basically, if you go talk to someone who was smoking cannabis back in, say, the 70s, they'll tell you how mild it was compared to today's strains. But CBD, while it has minor psychoactivity, is non-psychotropic and doesn't cause the high associated with THC. CBD is associated with relaxation, peacefulness, treating aches and pains, and anecdotally being used to combat discomfort, aches, and anxiety. And the preclinical evidence strongly supports CBD as a treatment for anxiety, panic, OCD, and PTSD when administered acutely. A few preclinical studies suggest that CBD may have therapeutic properties on opioid, cocaine, and psychostimulant addiction, and some preliminary data for tobacco and, strangely enough, cannabis addiction. And that has to do with the relationship between CBD and THC. But studies conflict as to whether CBD attenuates or exacerbates, decreases or increases the effects of THC. This includes effects of CBD on THC-induced anxiety, psychosis, and cognitive deficits. In some cases, when CBD is administered prior to THC in rodents, potentiation or strengthening can be observed, whereas co-administration results in a blockade or amelioration, lessening, of THC's effects. In contrast, the beneficial effects of CBD in a monkey model of THC-induced behavioral impairment were present when CBD was administered with or prior to the THC. For what it's worth in this regard, there is a 1-to-1 formulation of CBD to THC known as nabiximols, sold as Sativex, for symptomatic relief of spasticity from MS. CBD is an anticonvulsant in many acute animal models, and generally THC is an anticonvulsant, but it can be proconvulsant in some healthy animals. The psychotropic effects of delta-9 THC limit the tolerability, which is science speak for the rats were too stoned to do the study. I mean, I can't blame them. I don't know any humans that can complete a maze after taking a dab. Now, as I mentioned, cannabis can contain either or both of these compounds, and people like to find a balance that works for them. Some people aren't interested in a high or any form of mind alteration, and they will often stick to strictly CBD products. Generally, recreational users of cannabis either like CBD or are kind of ambivalent to it. Some aren't really bothered and focused on THC and other aspects of strains, while others might enjoy different combinations of THC and CBD, or alternating between THC and CBD products to treat various symptoms or to elicit different responses. And that could be a situational choice, similar to how you dress differently for a night out clubbing versus staying in and watching Netflix. I have yet to find opposition to purely CBD, and what I mean is no one I know is pro-THC but CBD abstinent in their cannabis. The basic way you can think about THC in cannabis is how potent the high will be, and CBD in cannabis is how relieving it will be. That's of course an oversimplification, but a guideline that might help. So, there you have it. The differences of CBD and THC, as well as what they're used for, and why someone might choose one over the other, or both. And I hope you've enjoyed, learned, or both.